The following program contains discussion of real-life law enforcement situations and may include graphic content and adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to End of Watch with Bootsy and Sal. We're your hosts, Kevin Grogan and Lou Velosi.
We'll weigh in on topics that affect the law enforcement community and invite guests who have their fingers on the pulse of our nation.
With over 40 years of combined law enforcement experience, ranging from patrol to multi-million-dollar federal investigations, we are not going to pull any punches.
So welcome to End of Watch with Bootsy and Sal. I'm your host, Kevin Grogan, a.k.a. Bootsy.
And I'm Lou Velosi, a.k.a. Sal.
We are back here at South Magazine headquarters in Savannah, Georgia. Man, it's been a little bit of a break, but thank you all for coming back.
It's been over a year, Bootsy.
It's been over a year because of this pandemic and masks and all that kind of shit. So now we can actually sit next to each other, which he's pretty pleased about to get so close to me. But
I bet he is.
We're in a day and age where everything's kind of coming full circle. For years they've been telling the police that they're a bunch of racist guys and they're out there, targeting minorities and beating and killing people. And Joe Biden just got on the news the other day. Your buddy Joe Biden got on the news today talking about how violent crime is out of hand and murders are up 41% in Atlanta, Georgia. Well, what the fuck did you think? We've been telling our cops not to police anymore, and now you have everybody sitting back in a reactive stance. So, and the bad guys are taking advantage of that, and that surprises anybody. Like, look, we've said it on this show and continue to say it. Let our cops be our cops. Go out and do your jobs and be careful while you're doing it. Stay safe.
All right, Bootsy, you're kind of jumping the gun here.
Sorry, man.
You're getting into this, and we haven't introduced our guest yet. So let's get into that first, and then we can talk about the whole gun thing. So it has been a year since we've done a show, and we finished really strong. We had some great guests at the end, Sheriff David Clark and Steve Murphy and Javier Pena from Narcos, Victor Avila. We had a great run, man, and we're going to kick up a new season now, and we got Lou Pimber is our guest today. Lou is a former military guy. He was an Army guy, and then he became law enforcement, kind of like Bootsy, after his Army stint. And Lou
kind of like Bootsy, but not as cool.
Right. And Lou worked undercover, so he is an undercover brother of mine. He also knows another one of our former guests, Jay Dobbins. He worked with him. And Lou was with the Haida Drug Task Force, which those guys do incredible work. They do great work. And Lou then transitioned after law enforcement into an acting career with great success. To become an actor, an entrepreneur, and that's one thing we highlight on this show, Lou, is guys who after they leave, the military and or law enforcement, who do great things, man. Because when you turn that page, me and Bootsy have done that. When you go to the next chapter, we bring a lot of game. Having been in law enforcement, having been in the military and all that, to the private sector. And Lou, you're a great example of someone who's done some really cool things. So Lou, welcome to the show, man. And thanks for being here
man.
Early in the morning over there in Arizona, man.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I've seen you guys' stuff before, and I appreciate what you guys are doing. I like your style, and thank you for having me. You're absolutely right. It's one of the toughest things for people like us is to transition from where we go to something different. Sometimes change is hard for people, right? And it was hard for me. And I thought I was gonna be a law enforcement officer my whole life, and I really did, and that was my intention. And I almost was a law enforcement officer the rest of my life. I worked undercover for many years. I volunteered for stuff. That's all I wanted to do was work undercover drugs and stuff like that. That's all I wanted to do ever since I was a youngster. And I got hurt on the job, and I was forced to have to reinvent myself. And so the biggest challenge what I have found is with cops where their career stops or they retire is that identity. They lose that identity of having been that guy, that soldier, or that law enforcement officer, and then they're just everyday Joe now. And it's very hard because
Yes.
You work so hard to become that guy and stick your nose into all of that stuff, and then when it's gone, you're kind of floundering, like, what the fuck do I do now? You know?
Yeah, it's very challenging. And look, in my case, it was I mean, I didn't plan on that day being my last undercover drug deal. I didn't plan on that being my last one, but obviously other people had other plans, and from that day on, my whole life changed. My whole life changed, and I had no choice but to face reinvention, and it was difficult. It was difficult because, number one, you know, I was dealing with a brain injury. By the way, I didn't know I had a brain injury. Everybody else knew it, but I didn't. You know, everybody else knew something's wrong with this guy, and I'm like, I'm fine. What are you talking about?
Funny how that works.
Then I still have a permanently damaged inner ear, and then other problems that came with it, and then with the shock and awe how it happened, and then the shock and awe post that incident, and then everything else comes crashing on you because you're living at this high speed life, and then it comes to a sudden stop, and then everything comes to you, the nightmares, everything comes, all the near misses, all the near hits, all the close calls, they all just come back to you because you're no longer suppressing that with daily activity.
You're not trying to move forward and push through it anymore. And once you stop, it catches up with you.
Hey,
it just catches up.
Lou, let's back up a little bit and tell us a little bit about, you know, you're not going into detail, but you know, what you were doing working undercover, kind of deals you were doing, and what kind of led up to the incident.
Yeah, you know, I was in an undercover conspiracy squad, and and you know how those units are made up. They have different units and stuff like that. So I would kind of loan myself out to different, if they needed a person that fit the profile, I'd go do it. We got Jamaicans wanted to buy 1,000 pounds of weed. Who wants to be the middle guy? I'll do it. I'll negotiate that. You know, we got guys from Mexico looking for some guns. Who wants to make the introduction? I can take care of that. You know, and I volunteered for it. I look back on it now, I'm like, what the hell was I doing? But because it was fun and dangerous at the same time. And so on this particular day, I mean, I negotiated a bunch of cocaine for some guy, and he was originally out of Mexico. And I remember this guy was interesting because he was missing his, I think, 2 or 3 of his fingers on his hand. So I called him Claw Man, right? That was kind of my nickname for him. I was introduced to this guy through a DEA informant, and who was really solid. This guy was really solid, and he did a great job of edifying me to these people, right? I went by different names: Chino, Potrillo, El Gallero, all sorts of different names. Good times. And this guy, we worked a deal for a bunch of cocaine to be brought over. We had lunch with the guy. We sat down, and then we did the right thing by what we call surprise flash, and we did that. And so the guy says, okay, cool. And I said, you're not going to ever see that paper again, which the money, until you bring me my stuff. Briefing, we briefed the SWAT unit that was there to kind of cover during that flash, and we briefed them, a very detailed briefing. And then again later on, when they confirmed they were going to bring the cocaine over to us, we briefed them again. And it just started getting dark, started getting late. You know, the supervisor in the group ended up changing the arrest signal, and because it got dark, and I was like, that's clue number 1. So I take ownership of that. You know what I mean? I've been to a lot of undercover schools, and you don't change certain things, you know. And so, but they change it in the middle of it because it's getting dark, and I'm like, okay, and then they bring it over. I go look at it in the car, and then I'm counting keys, man. I'm like, okay, they're all there. And I saw nothing. Nobody's moving, you know. And of course, it's merely seconds, but it feels like hours.
That's a bad feeling.
Everybody's getting antsy. Everybody's getting antsy. Bad guys getting antsy. Claw Man's getting antsy. And bad guys are like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? It was like, I don't know, man. In my mind, I always relive that horrible scene in Scarface where they go in a hotel and they tie the guy up and they chop him up with a saw, man. And so, and nothing's happening. And I'm counting, and I count them again, and nothing's happening. So I'm like, shit. So I walked
I think
back.
that's something civilians who have never been there don't understand. Those moments, like you said, it was probably what, 10, 20 seconds, but
Yeah.
that's a lifetime when you're waiting to know the next thing, and then the bad guys are looking at you like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, it's time to put up or shut up. And
I've been there, Lou. It's a bad feeling.
And you're there, and I'm counting these damn, and they brought all the cocaine that I had asked for, all of it. I'm like, wow, you guys came through.
When does that ever happen?
Now I have to come through, right? So now we like, okay, where's the money? It's over there. So we walk back over to my Firebird, and I slowly open up the hatch on it. By then, police should have already showed up. And we just wanted to get this guy back and extradited to his home country because he was wanted out there as well. And of course, guys brought cocaine. We're going to arrest them. And so nothing happens. Finally, there's movement. And I'm playing dumb. I mean, it's not hard to play dumb, but I had to play dumb. I had to play dumb really, really bad. Like I'm trying to get to the money. I can't reach the money. Anxiety levels through the roof. Bad guy. I mean, I can see the sweat coming off the guy. At any moment, I felt the gun's gonna come out. So, all right, what are you playing games or what the heck's going on, right? And finally, police show up, man. And per the briefing, I went to lay down next to my Firebird. My partner just kind of steps backward, and he gets picked up by the boss. And as I'm laying down, I hear footsteps. You've done that so many times. It's good guy footsteps versus bad guy footsteps. I can tell the cadence of the step. And here comes this guy, and he comes around, and as I'm laying down, I have flashbang go off right over here next to me. Bad guy over here, flashbang goes off between his legs, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm probably next. And as I'm laying down, I just feel a swift kick underneath on my face right here. Like some guy was getting ready to hit a goal on a football game, trying to hit the ball in. And the guy, and then he continues just kicking in the back of my head, in my ear, in my face. And I was like, what the heck's going on here, man? And it was, I knew who was doing it, but my mind says it cannot be that. You don't train for that. You don't train to get your ass kicked by your own guys. You don't train for that. That scenario never. I used to teach defensive tactics for undercover narcs and just for unconventional fighting inside of a car, in tight quarters, you name it. You never train for that. So what did I do? I just took an ass beating, and the body wire recorded the whole thing. The dude beat my ass for almost 3 minutes. Just kept smashing in my face, back of my head after he kicked me several times. And all he kept saying was, if you did what you're supposed to do, this wouldn't be happening to you. And I'm confused at that point. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're talking to me, dude. I'm not your average dude out here on the south side who's getting his ass kicked by a cop right now. Let me tell you, it's hard for me to admit these things happen because I love police, man. I love cops. 99% of them are good guys. It's that 1% that just screwed up for everybody, man. And eventually he stops. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm just going to brace myself right here on the asphalt, because if I roll over and he sees a gun, he's going to shoot me. If I make any movements, he's going to shoot me. So it was bad. And it was very difficult to process that. And then finally someone comes around and handcuffs me. And I'd never been so thankful to be handcuffed in my life, because I knew that at that point someone's going to pick me up.
At least that way you think it's over, or hope it's over.
Here's what was crazy about it, man. The guy who handcuffs me, I can tell he knows who I am by the way he spoke to me, because they spoke to everyone else in Spanish and they spoke to me in English. So he knows who I am. And he picks me up, and I'm, I don't know, when you get your head kicked in for a while, you're just kind of in a weird place in your head. So I'm a little aggressive at that point. And he kind of grabs me because he tells me to calm down. I said, no, you calm down, bro. Look at me. I said, turn me around and look at me. I said, look at me. He goes, what do you mean? The guy turns me around. He goes, whoa. He goes, who did that? I said, he did that. And at that point, it was a, oh shit moment. Somebody screwed up. And my God, and the heartbreak just continued to happen from that point on. I sit down. They don't call meds. I had to request meds. I had to request meds. And now I see these guys huddle around, and it's a no shit moment. How did that happen? Long and short, man.
Quick question. The guy who was actually doing the kicking, had you ever met him before?
This guy had covered me on several deals. Several deals.
So there's no way he doesn't know who you are?
No way. I trusted this guy with my life many times. Within inches of, I trusted this guy for me to lay down in between beds in a hotel and they would shoot over me in live fire situations. That's how much I trusted these people. And months before that, I had done another op, and with a guy, MS-13 guy, bring me a bunch of heroin. The guy got away from them. In the post briefing, you're supposed to be, break stuff down. I said, guys, I asked you guys not to come out in a single file, but half moon shape this guy, because this guy he's squirrely. And they came out in a single file and they lost him. He ended up taking 4 or 5 families hostage that night. It was a mess in my town. And I spoke out about it. They didn't like that. Shortly after my incident that I talked about earlier, I got a phone call from one of my old partners, and who's passed away now. And he says, hey man, in Spanish, he says to me, Supe que la traían contigo, meaning I heard they kind of had it out for you. Like, what do you mean? He goes, I can't talk right now, but I'll call you later. Frank ended up dying like 10 days later. And I never found out what he knew. And so, but the long and short is this, man. It took me 4 years to recover from this whole thing. I drank my ass up. They gave me pain pills, like it was like stacks. Like I was like friggin', like I was like a drug dealer again, man. I had stacks of pain pills, Valium, Oxycontin, you name it. And then the whole brain injury side of it. Married to, at the time, to someone who really didn't care of my recovery or what had happened, was sort of disconnected with it. And it was a very difficult time in my life. And so the only saving grace for me, I reached a point where I had to say, dude, I had to stop drinking a 12-pack a day. I had to stop chasing the pills with beer, the Neurontin, the gabapentin, all this stuff that's horrible, man. Horrible. And I had to stop that cold turkey. Then you deal from there, you start dealing with the nightmares, all your near misses, all the near hits just come crashing into your life. Because all I had now was time to lay around my house, recover. And that was 4 years of just almost every single night I had, it was rough nights. And the ideation of suicide just all of a sudden just creeps up on you, man. And it's horrible. You can't shake it. You're like, what, how does that come about? Like, where does that come from? It's just a combination of a lot of things. Like you guys mentioned Victor Avila, and I spoke to him before, and I read his book, and there's a point where he says, it's like it's like the devil is in the room with you. And I was like, shit, I thought I was the only one who ever thought that.
Well, we all do it at some point. When you're sitting there in that dark room after, you're there for 4 years. So, so many guys have been there and they don't know. It's almost like there's no escape. And I think Victor's analogy of the devil being in the room with you is perfect, because he's there. You can't see him, but you can fucking feel it.
Yep.
And that's the thing. And I think a lot of that has to do with that sense of purpose. When we were talking earlier, you spend your whole life trying to become that guy. And when you're not that guy anymore, or you feel that guy flipping away, you think, what the fuck is the purpose? Where, what do we do tomorrow?
Yeah.
And if you don't find that, man, and unfortunately, the sad truth is a lot of guys don't find it.
They don't. And you know how I found it in books. I picked up entrepreneur books. I read Donald Trump business books. I read Robert Kiyosaki business books. I just read. And that was part of my therapy. And that was part of my therapy because I was having trouble tracking my vision. I was driving when I shouldn't have been driving. Because I was missing that lifestyle again. I would hang out in places that I used to hang out at when I would meet drug dealers and stuff like that, like in those kind of bars. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing here, man?
It's the attraction to dangerous behavior, man.
Hey, Lou, quick question. Before we kind of move on into the next chapter, and again, you don't have to get into specifics, but was there ever any discipline for that guy?
Yeah.
Or any of those
guys that you... And with all due respect to the good guys out there, okay, I'm talking about this bad guy. When I was interviewed by their internal affairs, it was more like an interrogation. They interviewed me for probably, I'm gonna say for hours, and probably 4 hours. 4 hours they interviewed me. There was a break in between, like, you guys want lunch? When they interviewed him, it was 45 minutes. My recorded copy of my interview was like 2.5 inches thick, stack of paper. His was just like that. The only discipline that came from it was they just retrained them on not to be kicking guys in the back of the head, right?
Not to kick other cops in the head. Yeah. It's good training.
But he got promoted a little later on, but then he ended up getting demoted because he showed up drunk on a SWAT call. Okay, and ended up getting I think he was able to retire or something like that. But the whole crazy bit about this is that I had to reach a point in my life, man, where I had to forgive this person for doing that, because I had bad intentions, man.
Sure.
I knew exactly where he lived. I knew all sorts of stuff that they didn't know I knew. I had bad intentions. I knew everything about his wife. I knew everything about him. He forgot that I'd been to his house before, and I was not in a good place. And I had to reach a point where I had to forgive. And it was just in time, because one day I'm with my son and we're in a store, and I look to my left, and there he's standing right there. And it was very hard, but I reached a point in my heart where I had to forgive. I'm glad I did, because had I not, it was just, what would have been so messed up is all the good stuff that I had done in my life, I would have been known for that incident right there.
Bingo. Yep.
Yeah, we know a little bit about that.
Yeah, Boots and I can definitely relate with your story, brother. And on this podcast, we have pointed out, and we like to point out, the good, the bad, and the ugly. When it comes to law enforcement, and this is definitely falls under the bad and the ugly, and it happens. And if you don't talk about it and point it out, then it's not real, right? If we just talk about how great law enforcement is and all that in this podcast, it's not real, because there are some bad, man, and this is a great example of it.
Same analogy, man, is you can't move past it unless you address it. You have to. I think it's the law enforcement community can't get past it unless we sort out the bad apples. That's how the whole George Floyd incident, all that kind of stuff. It's a mark on law enforcement, but it's very much the exception and not the rule.
Exactly, absolutely right. I believe that firmly. And but it's so nuts, man. And as a child, one of the reasons why I chose law enforcement was because of a cop like that. When my dad was out, my dad said, "Look, I deserve to get arrested," he said, "but I don't deserve what happened to me." And I said, "What happened?" And I'm a kid. He goes, "I was drunk on the street. I got into a fight. Police showed up, and I got stupid with them, and they arrested me, and I deserve that. But when they put me in the car, I didn't deserve getting the door slammed on me half a dozen times or so until they broke my ankle." And I remember as a kid, man, walking through the neighborhood, looking for witnesses to see if anyone saw anything. I remember as a kid going to the police station in my area, filing a complaint. I remember that. And I was like, I still wanted to be a cop because I want to be the guy who didn't do that. And what's so fucked up is that I ended up retiring because of a cop like that.
Yeah, that's ironic.
It's so weird, man. But I didn't allow those things to make me bitter. I just had to get better from all that, you know, and it allowed me to transition into the world of business. And I'm a firm believer, man, that we can create our own opportunities. We can create our own luck with preparation and timing. You create your own luck. And one day I'm visiting some friends and they say, "Hey, don't you speak Spanish?" I say, "Yes." And I said, "Weren't you a cop or a soldier?" I said, "Yeah, I was both." He goes, "Well, I know a guy who's here from Mexico with the cable network filming. They need a guy who can teach his actors how to do like the weapons and all that cool guy stuff." I'm like, "I can help." I'm like, "Okay." That's how I got into TV and movies. And so that gave me what I found from that. I found a safe space, so to speak, where I knew I could still relive those moments again that I was missing in a safer environment.
Well, it's funny because you were talking about it earlier, and I could kind of see it playing out when you were talking about, hey, we need a guy to go, you know, do this introduction with the Jamaicans and all this. Oh, we need a guy to go and set up this cocaine deal. Acting's no different. Hey, we need a guy to play this role. Hey, we need a guy, and you strike me as the kind of guy like, hey, shit, I'll do it.
Yeah. And I found that, I pursued acting at that point because I'm like, well, this is therapeutic, man. Like I feel good afterward. I'm still feeding that adrenaline that we get shot up with, you know.
Cool thing about acting though is you can turn it off.
You can turn it off.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into film. I did a short film called Duress based on some undercover work that I have done. I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch it or not, but very proud of it. It won at several film festivals. And then I got on a show called Breaking Bad and a show called Gang Related, other movies as well. I've gotten to act and learn how in the Mohawk language, and different things. And I found it to be very helpful because, let's admit it, you leave police work, you're going to leave with some post-traumatic stress. And I refuse to be a statistic. I refuse to go down like that. I refuse to be that retired cop who goes out in under bad situation like that, ends up in some small little trailer in some ho-dunked city, and like they do in movies, man. I'm not going to be that diehard guy living in the trailer,
drinking yourself to death.
Yes.
You know, Lou, you know, we can relate. You know, Bootsy and I, both of our law enforcement careers ended unceremoniously.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good word, right? But
It's a nice one.
But you know, I like you talk about how you had to forgive that guy and drop it. We had similar issues, but if you carry it with you, then they win. You have to, because nobody gives a fuck is the bottom line. Nobody cares.
Right.
Like your anger and all that, like if you're angry at ATF management or your police department, whoever it is, nobody cares.
They don't give
right?
a fuck.
There is nobody.
Right.
So you had to forgive and just drop that anger, because if you had carried that anger with you for the rest of your life, you lose.
Right.
Lose. They win forever.
That guy gets to beat you twice in that scenario.
Yeah.
You know, guys like us aren't wired that way. We don't let you win twice. You know,
Right.
That's why you either cut it the fuck loose or you know, you let it drag you down.
Yeah, and it was really kicking my ass for a long time, and a lot of drinking, a lot of pills, a lot of depression, suicide ideation out of just pure anger, and it wasn't until a day when I would picture, where am I going to do it? 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 What's it going to look like? All the damn time. It was horrible. And that stuff doesn't leave you. Yeah, it doesn't leave you. It's really weird. It's like a devil, man. It doesn't leave you. It's a thief, you know? And so one day I was under some serious medication and alcohol, and I had enough wits to know to force myself to sleep, and at night I would have nightmares that men in soldier uniforms were coming into my house. I got so paranoid that I would position my bed so I can see the glass door, because I would have dreams of them doing a dynamic entry to my glass door. I was going nuts. And so I took my gun apart the next morning. I just disassembled it, left it right in that place, and then touch it for like 2-3 years. And I just left it alone, man. And I had to keep things in front of me that were reminders of me of why I had a lot to live for.
When you're in that zone there that you're talking about, Lou, you're in the red. That's what we call it. You're like a car whose engine is the RPMs are way up there. You're at 8, 9, 10. And if you do that with a car, that engine's going to blow up eventually. You can't sustain it. And we've been there. And when you're in that red, man, again, the body can't sustain it. And I truly believe it takes some years off your life.
Yeah.
I truly believe that. So if you don't figure out how to get out of that, how to get out of that high revving and idle back down, something's going to give.
Yep.
And thank God you figured it out, and you found a way, to stop with the pills and to, forgive and not forget, but at least forgive and move on. And you became an actor and an entrepreneur, which is phenomenal, man.
Thank you, Matt.
Tell us what you're doing though. Give us. Let's go into it now. So you start. You got an awesome break. With you got into Breaking Bad, and
that's a show even I've heard of.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that and what you got going on right now, man.
Yeah. So it's funny. I almost didn't even show up to the audition. My agent called me up, and I didn't show up. I almost didn't show up because I was afraid I wasn't going to get the part, because they said I heard some names that were turned down in season 4, and I was like, oh wow, why are they going to say yes to me? But I prepared, man. I prepared with the coach and everything, and I using my own skill, and I prepared. And I get a call. I'm out jogging one day, and my phone rings. I'm like, yes. I'm like, hey, it's the agent. Hey, what's up? You available? So and so. I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, yes. And so that's how that happened. And then I got to work. Amazing people, Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul, all those guys, great, just hardworking dudes, man. They're professionals. They're hardworking people. They just happen to be in television, and got to meet those people. And the fans of Breaking Bad are kind of weird. Like not weird, but they're just very special. When I went to New Mexico to shoot it, I'm in the hotel, and there's people there who already know that I'm coming, and I'm a nobody in the business, but they already have your picture. They know your name, and you're eating, and they just come into the hotel, and you're eating like this. You're having, and I was having dinner with Stephen Bauer, Stephen Bauer from Scarface, Manolo from Scarface.
Yeah, and, Manolo, he's great.
Yeah, and so we're sitting there, and this person walks up. They're like this with a picture, and I don't know it was a picture, and and they put it in front of you. I'm like, that's a picture of you. I'm like, that's me. And they want you to sign it, and I'm like, sure. I go, don't you want his signature? That's freaking Stephen Bauer. And like, oh yeah, he's
Manolo, man.
And so they got his. But it's just a weird. It was a different group of people. They were like fanatics, But I had a really good time. Met some really good people. I still act. I've turned down more stuff than I've had because of my business now. Last bit I did a thing for Axon, which is the police camera equipment. It was like a short film, but it was cut and do different commercials. But I really enjoyed that. But now I own a business with my wife. On a financial firm. We set up life insurance, retirement planning, 401k rollovers, that sort of thing, and it allows me to serve and protect my community again, because I think there's a lack of financial literacy amongst our people today, and that's what gets you in the end. And so we're big on that. I represent all sorts of companies within my firm, and I have an excellent CEO. His name's Patrick Bet-David. He's a friend of mine.
I'm a big fan of that guy, man.
Yeah.
One of the greatest interviewers ever.
Yes. Yeah. He's very intense, man. I've learned a lot from him. I learned a lot. And thankfully to those things, and just reading a lot of good books. I mean, I have stacks of books. I've been reading for years, but for the past 5-6 years, I really 10x that reading. It's allowed me to expand my thinking. It's allowed me to be a leader. It's allowed me to be a better father, and hope maybe a better husband. but it's allowed me to do a lot of things better just reading, and so I highly recommend.
Well, man, it sounds like a hell of a way to climb out of the hole you were in, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, I just want to mention real quick before we wrap up, Lou is also friends with a friend of our show, a guy I used to work with, Jay Dobbins.
Yeah.
Who's been on our show a couple times.
Man.
The Bird.
Yeah.
And which is awesome. I mean, that's just a dynamic guest who he was also on with Patrick Bet David, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And that was a phenomenal interview. But that's just a cool, our community, we find like through doing this show is kind of small.
It is, yeah.
It is.
Jay's an incredible dude, like super talented, excellent writer, just a thinker. He did a film called Big Red Friday. It was a short film. It did very well. I got to work on that film with him. He asked me to be in it, and I said, hell yeah. And a very good short film. And so, I'm very impressed with the guy. I think he's done a lot for himself. Played some, he was a baller, played ball, and he's had a lot of bad shit happen to him, and
lived a life for sure.
And there he is, man.
Hey, and look, kind of like you, Lou, what you're doing now, totally different from law enforcement. Bird's a high school football coach now, man.
Yep. He coaches. I think it's at Tanque Verde High School. I think he got hired at Tanque Verde. Yep. And so he's always giving back in some way, shape, or form. Always giving back.
So there is life after law enforcement, man.
For sure, and these guys keep proving it. And you wind up, in a financial position. Imagine the adrenaline rush is a little bit different or lacking compared to your earlier life. But the same theme is helping people. And I thought it was pretty cool how you brought that up, man. It's all right.
There is life after law enforcement. You just have to recognize the signs when they come your way. You have to recognize the opportunities.
And realize, one of the things you said, Lou, was, you thought you were the only one. When you're sitting there in that hole and you think you're the only one, that's why we do this show, is to let guys and girls know, this ain't the end. You're not alone. There's so many people that have been in that room, so many people that have been in that darkness, and you can climb out of it, and we're always here to lend an ear, and, there's so many people out there that will listen and help you get out of that hole.
For sure. There absolutely is. And they just have to, one, be willing to listen, be willing to ask for the help. You know what I'm saying? And yes, there is life after law enforcement, and it can be totally different from what you were doing. Totally different.
And still enjoyable.
Yes. Yeah. Because remember, especially if your kids are young, they still have to live, man. They still got a lot of living left to do. You got to be there for them. You got to be strong for them. You got to be maintain a level of mental and physical fitness for them. You have to be. You just got to be there still.
The coolest part about that, though, Lou, I found is I've gotten so much more happiness watching them. Because I was absent for the first, more than half of my kid's life.
Yeah.
Always working, always volunteering, always doing that next thing. Okay, we're working a night up. I got it. I'm on it. You miss so much shit. Now that I'm away from it and I watch what he does as he grows, holy shit, that's so much more rewarding than anything I've ever done.
Yeah, my son is also, you say your son's in the military, right?
Yeah, United States Army, 68 whiskey, just like you.
The medic, right on, man, combat medic. My son's an MP. He's got a scholarship to get his schooling done and become an officer. So he's gonna become an officer
of the troops and for the troops.
Yep. And my daughter's Air Force, and she's in the medical field. She went to Fort Sam, which to her was so, going from an Air Force environment to an Army environment was so weird for her. But
it's a different world.
Different world, man. Different world. So yeah, man, that's my story, man. And I just want people to know that there is more to life after law enforcement if you choose to. You can still serve your community in so many different ways. Whether you want to volunteer, become an entrepreneur. Look, I believe that we can serve our country in so many different ways, and as a serviceman in the military, as a law enforcement officer, as an entrepreneur. And I firmly believe that entrepreneurs, we make up the skeleton of the nation. And we carry the flag for the nation here in the United States. Our servicemen carry the flag overseas, and everyone else, law enforcement, doctors, nurses, construction, they make up the brains and the heart and soul of the country. So we can do big things, man.
That's awesome. Lou, you are a super cool dude.
Hey, thank
It was an honor to have you on the show. We usually don't like to have guys on who are so much better looking than Bootsy. You made an exception.
It's hard to find the ones that aren't.
Right.
You guys have to hold a casting, you know? It's
Yeah,
Hollywood.
right.
I'll find one someday.
Hey,
You have
Lou, on a serious note, man, I thank you for your service to this country, you know, in the military, in law enforcement.
yeah, man.
What you're doing post law enforcement, and that's what this show is all about, is awesome. An entrepreneur, an actor, super cool, man. Thank you, brother. Thank you for everything you've done, and keep doing what you're doing, man.
Keep raising those patriots.
That's right. And thank you guys, man. I know you guys both served as well in law enforcement, so I appreciate you guys grinding it out there, you know. And you guys are obviously, I know Lou, your father. You got young kids, I believe, or sort of young kids, right? And so you're there for them, man. That's what matters. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And good luck, Mr. Bootsy. I know it's hard to find people on here that to meet your standards of.
Look at this, though, man. That's all I got to say.
He's a pudgy Irish guy, Lou.
I feel like I'm back in Hollywood right now. Oh, damn.
Brad Pitiful is what a lot of people call him. Hey, Lou, brother, we're gonna sign off, man. Thank you.
All right.
And,
Thanks, brother. Stay in touch.
God bless.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Anything for all?
End of Watch with Bootsy and Sal. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and more.